Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media or reach out to Gary Jones, the founder of Grow Radio. Let's make this happen. Welcome to Mic Drop Moments, and today I'm chatting with Katy Eatenton. And Katy, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to my audience and tell us what you do.
So you've already said I'm Katy Eatenton and I am a financial advisor and I specialise in mortgages and protection, which covers your wills, your trusts, your life insurance, critical illness, income protection
All
for
that boring,
personal and business.
all that boring stuff that nobody wants to talk about, but we're going to dig into a little bit later. And
Yes,
I talk a lot about the power of connection, and I want to say that I don't think we would ever have met, or our paths would not have crossed had we not met on a lovely retreat in Malta.
I mean,
Um,
it could have been worse.
and we shared a few days over there. We had a lovely boat experience. It was a mastermind day. It was a retreat. We were sort of really digging deep. We had a great time there. But then we sort of got to know each other a little bit better because we ended up on the same mastermind. And
Yes.
we've just been on another retreat. We don't just go on retreats. I would just like to say that there is huge value. And these are business retreats. These are not woo-woo. These are real dig deep business retreats. And we've had subsequent conversations and hung out together. And I think when you're doing that, when you're in those environments together, you actually make deeper connections. Do you find that?
Definitely. I don't actually think there would be anyone on any of the retreats that I would have met had we not have been there. But Lisa's very good at that, isn't she? I felt that everyone, both Malta and where we were recently, everyone was put there for a reason. I got some value from everyone that I spoke to, and yeah, it deepened obviously our connection. I got the chance to spend more time with you. Um, and yeah, no one believes that they're actually business, but actually a lot of business gets discussed and ideas, and there's no right or wrong question or answer, which is nice because we're all at different stages, and it's nice to get an opinion from someone that's kind of fresh eyes, and then someone that's a little bit longer in the tooth. So, no, good connections. Definitely sun is always nicer.
Yeah, the sunny one was much better than the cold, wet,
Yeah.
wintry one. But I think for me, those conversations, and I think I had conversations with everybody in the room, and especially the more recent retreat, those connections were made, the collaborations have started to form, the
Mm,
business is starting to happen between people actually there. And you don't see the power of bringing those people together and what those connections can lead to. And
mm.
here you are, sat on my podcast, which is
Indeed.
invitation only, by the way. So, that's the power of connection and being on retreats together and getting
Yes.
to know people. And I think you've got a really valuable topic, which we're going to come on to later. But what's your backstory? How did you get to be doing mortgage and protection and wills and trusts and all that?
Um, so I alluded to it a little bit while we were away because obviously I was dealing the cards, wasn't I? So my sort of adult career started in casinos. I was a croupier and enjoyed it, but it got to the point where I couldn't continue working nights. I'd started working days with a property developer and working at the weekend in working in the casino at the weekend. Had a small baby. Actually, I think I was pregnant when I was doing both. Um, it's so long ago. The dates get blurred, but around the time that I was pregnant and then had my daughter, I was working for a property developer, and he also had a mortgage arm, which I used to oversee. I went on maternity leave, and unfortunately, when I returned from mat leave, when she was 3 months old, there was no job for me. So he he'd had to employ three people to do the role that I was doing and just didn't get rid of them uh, to put me back in, I guess. So luckily, he'd paid for me to do my CMAP as part of trying to take the business forward. The guy that was doing the mortgages was getting older. He wanted to retire. I was, fresh eyes, bit of more motivation. And so he paid for me to do my exams. I didn't end up doing them, obviously, because he made me redundant, sacked me, or so I thought I'll do them myself. And I did. And I very much thought then I'm never going to rely on anyone ever again. So I set up on my own pretty much. My daughter was 3 months old. I'd split up with her dad. I'd lost my job. I was living in my mum's spare room. Um, I took my exams, I passed them, and here we are. I've focused very much on mortgages. And as time's going on and we're getting older and my clients are getting older, because obviously they're growing with me, you see people get divorced, you see people get sick, you see life changes. And I've got this burning desire that I don't want to see women ever be in women more so because men generally look after the finances in couples or and I've just got this burning desire that I don't ever want women to be in the situation I was. Not that there's an insurance policy that would have helped in that instance, but more the fact that I don't ever want to rely on anyone and I don't want anybody that comes across my desk or in my person, as a connection or whatever, that ever has to rely on somebody else to pick up the pieces when things go wrong. So I've done a little bit of a pivot. I'm still mortgages and protection, but I'm a lot more passionate now about making sure that everybody has a will, has some form of cover, so they don't have to rely on GoFundMe or family or the government benefits, whatever. They've got it now down and it's not expensive.
And
So,
it's and that's the thing. The younger you are when you put these things in place, the cheaper they are, as I know to my cost for some recent insurance I took out. But that's just the nature of the beast. But I've always had insurance. I've always had good insurance, and I've always made sure. We had this conversation at the retreat, and you said you wouldn't hesitate to go and get car insurance because it's mandatory.
mhm,
Yet health insurance, income protection insurance, life insurance, all those other insurances are voluntary.
mhm,
And so many people say, oh, well, I'll leave it till later.
mhm.
And
And
then
then the later they phone you and they say, "Oh, can I sort it out now?" But why? Oh, I've just been diagnosed with something. Well, no, you
too
can't
late.
now.
Yeah,
That was what it was for.
yeah,
And unfortunately, I've got more stories than I would like to have about times that it's worked, and also times that people haven't listened and have waited until later and later doesn't come. So
yeah,
it's and obviously, your son works in the industry as well. So
yeah.
you hear it every time you speak to me and you hear it from him. I mean, he's obviously younger, so he
It's
won't.
something that I always remember, and I've got this very, very vivid memory of the man from the Pru knocking the door when I was a little girl, and I was allowed to go and answer the door because every week he used to come and collect the cash for the policy. That's how they used to do it in those days. And so my parents were big on insurance.
Mm,
Had I not had that instilled into me, as
mm,
soon as I was 18 and earning, I was looking at insurance. So sadly at the time I was buying policies that had a life end to them. I didn't realize that, but
mhm,
as time's gone on, I've always had life insurance. I've always had some form of protection insurance. I've recently taken out a policy that covers cash for my boys if I need to cover my mum's care home fees, that type of insurance.
mm.
I just always think, yes, so many people say, oh, it's dead money. You never get your money back when you're alive.
Good.
That's
Good.
good. I see that as an investment because if anything does happen to me, my boys haven't got the worry or the expense of paying for all the things that need to be done when I'm no longer here. I just
Mm,
know that there's a policy that will pay out, that will give them the cash they need to deal with everything.
mm. It's when, people have a pre-existing condition, or they're older, or maybe they're a bit too heavy for their height, and so the premiums are loaded there, which means they're more
Yeah.
expensive. And they're like, oh, it's too expensive. I said, that's because you're more likely to claim.
Yeah.
Take that as a sign that you need it, not,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'll wait until they go down. They're never going to go down, but the chances are you are going to get sick. And it's not for everyone. And I'm not, where you were saying about the guy from the Pru, that's the kind of image that I want to change with insurance. Everybody has a perception of an old white guy with a briefcase in grey coming to talk about insurance. And I'm trying to move away from that and bring a bit more life into it, and see it as it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. You know, People insure their mobile before they insure themselves. They insure their dog before they insure their husband. You know, it's I sit with some people and I'm saying, you pay £100 a month for your dog and you won't pay £50 a month for your daughter? How?
So it just people's perceptions, they just don't think of. I
Yeah,
think the thing is, I know that if I get a terminal illness, for example, my policy will pay out immediately.
yeah.
I know that, if I get a terminal illness and I want to travel the world, I can do it,
Hmm.
because there is a policy there for that. Yes, I can wait till I've died, but I've got another policy for that.
Yeah.
So it's looking at the different value eventualities. And yes, my policies are loaded. Yes,
Mm.
I've had medical stuff done in the past that does affect my policies, but I still see that as a necessity. And I just, and I remember years ago as well taking out one of those old-fashioned endowment mortgages where
Well, you had to have it.
you
Yeah.
had to prove you had a life policy in place to cover the balance of the mortgage at all times.
Hmm.
Where's that all gone?
Well,
Why?
I think it's because so many people are sick now. I had 10 appointments last Wednesday. So I actually went on a 2-day training boot camp
Yeah,
for getting better at selling insurance, because unfortunately it is a sale because people don't want it, or they're yet to see the value in it. So that's my mission, is for people to see the value in what there is available. And off the back of that, I had 10 appointments. So I was like, brilliant. There's 10 people that want insurance. Every single person either was waiting for an MRI, just been diagnosed with cancer, one's started antidepressants, another one is off sick from, and I was like, out of 10 people. And I thought not one of them was healthy, ready to go. And it's like, oh, if I'd have spoken to you 2 months ago or 6 months
yeah.
ago, it's so frustrating. Um,
So
so, you know,
if you're healthy, you need to look at this now,
Yeah,
basically.
if you're young, if you're healthy, if you don't smoke and you think, I don't need it, now's the time to get it, because it will never, ever, ever be this cheap, ever. My daughter got her first policy the day she turned 18, and
Yeah,
she will now still, not let that part. It's 100 quid, but it's for 500,000 forever.
yeah,
It's a whole of life policy. And she didn't need it at 18, but her life will change, where she may have a mortgage, she may have children, there's it's it is, like you said, it's an investment. And it's also, I posted on Valentine's, it's a love letter to those that you care about. How nice when you're dealing with the grief of losing the breadwinner, to be able to continue living in your home, your kids still having what they want, that your husband, wife has the send off they deserve, and you don't have to worry about setting up a GoFundMe, calling someone's parents, selling gold, selling jewelry, selling the house. You know, it gives choice. That's what it does. It gives choice.
yeah,
And I think at the times when you need it most are times when you're grieving and you've lost everything. You've got that little glimmer of hope. And I've seen it work in so many times that they do pay out. They want to pay out the claim payout rate is like 98, 99%, and the little percentage doesn't pay out. It's because people have lied because
Yeah.
they try and get it cheaper by pretending they don't smoke or pretending they don't drink. And of course, the first thing that providers do, insurers, like any insurance claim, they check. They contact your doctor and they check.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
actually,
what the process that you go through. I mean, you fill in the health questionnaire, you give them consent. And I've seen, my son has obviously done something similar, and he says people don't tick, you can share it, but it just takes longer because if you don't allow them to speak to your GP, they're going to have to speak to them some way to back up the evidence.
mm,
But it staggers me that, we've got the rate of 1 in 2 people getting cancer in
yep.
their life. We've got the rates of, what is it, 2/3 of people still don't have a will?
Two-thirds of people don't have a will. 50% of people are going to get cancer. And that doesn't mean they're going to die, but they will get diagnosed with cancer, which is going to be a life-changing event. The last thing you want to do when you're trying to recuperate and cure and heal and is to be going back to work and worrying about finances. And I think this, I'm sure the FCA announced statistic, I think 58% of people don't have any kind of cover at all. But I guarantee you, out of all of the adults that have a mobile phone, that mobile phone is insured in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I've got insurance on my house, I've got insurance on my contents, I've got insurance on my car, my dog, my phone. I've probably got other insurance. I've got health insurance,
Hmm.
and I've got life cover as well, and other insurances. It's just, yeah, it is money going out every month, but actually, I think the word protection is a good word actually, because I'm protecting my family from
Hmm.
having to go through challenging times when I pop my clogs at some point or another. Because that's one certainty in life: we're all going to die at some point.
Exactly, exactly. For now,
But,
100% of us
yeah,
are going to die.
yeah, yeah,
So out of the 50% that don't have a will, I mean, that was the first question I asked, wasn't it, when I was on the retreat? I was like, hands up, who's
it's
not going to
cool.
die? Hands up, who
Yeah,
hasn't got a will?
yeah,
It's until we know the secret of life, we need to prepare for that eventuality because it will happen. And, hopefully it is money thrown down the drain and no one claims and they live a long, healthy life and they don't get sick and they just grow old and gracefully die. Unfortunately, statistically, that's not what's going to happen. Um, and yeah, I'm going to bang my drum until people tell me to shut up at the moment because that poor actor, the Dawson's Creek actor that died last week, his wife the next day set up a GoFundMe. She got over $1 million in it for her and her 4 children. It's like, what?
yeah. And they can only do that because they've got the privilege of celebrity status. When you
Mm,
haven't, and I mean, my parents had policies for their funerals and policies but my dad, it was brilliant, not brilliant when he died, obviously, but we knew he
obviously, yeah.
would die and he was very well prepared. But he labelled every envelope with the policy number, the phone number for me to call, how much the payout was. He was so organised. And I think growing up around that, I think
Mm,
made me more conscious of the things
mm,
to do and to prepare. And it's not a nice topic to have. It's not a sexy topic. It's not like going out and buying something really exciting.
no.
But look at all the money we do buy on and spend on crap,
Yeah.
basically. We do waste a lot of our money on stuff. How much food do we throw in the bin every week? How much, how many clothes do we buy that have still got the tags on? All those
Hmm.
things. And I bet if you added up purchases like that, it would dwarf what it would cost to put an insurance
I
policy.
can go through people's bank statements and find the money for premiums. And it still baffles me how that there's more consideration for an animal, for a pet. I know pets are like children, and I haven't got insurance on my dog because I would just pay for it. But um, the argument that people have is, have you seen how expensive vet bills are? It's like, how much do you think you're going to lose? If you just work on income alone, so let's say you're on £2,000 a month. and you have income protection and you fall and you break your back and you never return to work, you're still going to get a percentage of that 2000. Let's say 2000 is what you get. It's,
Mm.
your actual take home's 2.5 and you end up with 2000. You get that, every year, every month, every year until you retire, whether that's 68, 70, however long you've put the policy. When you actually work that out, so 2000 a year is 24, say you get that for 20, 30 years, that's like hundreds of thousands, even over £1 million worth of cover for 20, 30 quid a month.
I know, I know.
But
But
I
we're
know I'm preaching to the
spreading the word.
converted with you,
We are
but
preaching. We are spreading the word. And you know, as you say, you're doing this from a passion of not wanting to see other women in situations where they are not protected and they've got to go and do like these plea for help. You know, please help me. I've got no money. You know, I saw it happen last year. You know, people who've got partners and whatever else, and they're no longer here and they're just left, and if they're not even married, it gets worse because they haven't
hmm
got the cohabit, you know, the
hmm
protection of cohabiting. So
yeah.
you can see it just opens up a whole can of worms. So
And also we're business owners. If we can't work, unless you've got a business where you've got staff and you're hands off, which, some of us have the luxury of being, but the majority, especially, the kind of women that we're in the company of, we are our business. And if we're unable to work, you can forget about mortgage, you can forget about car, forget about pet because you haven't got the income to do any of it anyway.
yeah,
And I now talk about it when people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I've seen my dream home." I talk about it then because you need to get your head around, yes, you're going to buy a house, but it's not a big, lovely house. It's a massive, massive debt, the biggest debt you're ever going to be in. And if you don't have something in place to pay that debt, the mortgage company will just come and take it away.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to change the face of insurance so it's not grey and boring and a man knocking on the door. I'm going to be like bright and glamorous and
Well, that's good to
make
hear.
death sexy.
And we will share all your links and everything in the show notes. So if people do want to, they can just have a chat with you,
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
they?
yeah.
To find out a
There's
little
no
bit
fee
more. Yeah,
for arranging insurance. It's
yeah.
not something that you pay for. You have a chat with me, I give you a recommendation, and that's it. There's
Yeah.
no charge for that.
And if you haven't got a will, get a will. That's the
And there's some exciting news happening, but from probably the beginning of March, I mean, from now onwards, whenever this goes out, but every single one of my clients will get offered a complimentary will. So there's no excuse then, you
yeah.
know, the will
That's
is paid for.
yeah. That's worth getting in place. Actually, I've
Mm.
got a will, and I know exactly where it is as well. So that's always
Yeah,
worth.
but you'll be dead, so you need to tell someone else where it
Oh,
is.
don't worry. It's all everything's going to be labelled just like my dad did for me. You know, it was so
Yeah.
much easier. I had a big file with all envelopes with all the numbers on. I won't be quite as archaic, but yeah,
Well,
I've
I
just
can remember my nan used to put savings in little envelopes,
brown
and she'd
envelopes.
have,
Yeah,
yep, an
yeah,
envelope for the gas, an
yeah,
envelope for the water, an
yeah.
envelope for pocket money, and
Yeah, that's how they used to live. But they used to budget brilliantly,
mm.
you know. And there was one that
Well,
said
because they didn't have Klarna and
that was one that said insurance, and I always remember my mum used to let me write the envelope. So she was.
oh,
My dad used to come home with the money, and we used to count it out as kids, and she used to let us help, you know, label and put it in all the envelopes, and that's how I learned, you know, financial.
budgeting and financing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, it's
maybe
been
I should do that on the next
yeah,
retreat. Take little
yeah,
envelopes.
yeah, yeah. It's been fantastic talking to you,
Thank you
Katie.
for having
And
me.
we will share your links, but I always ask my guests to leave my audience with a mic drop moment, a piece of wisdom or top tip that you would like to leave the audience.
So my normal takeaway is ask for forgiveness, not for permission, because I think we ask for permission to do the thing. However, that doesn't really work today because you can't ask for forgiveness when you haven't done the thing that we're talking about. So, mm, I don't know. What would be my top tip? Don't leave anything to chance. There you go.
I like that. And, too often we do leave things to chance and then it's too late.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
have a plan A, not a plan B.
exactly. Well, thank you so much for chatting to us, Katie.
Thank you.
And we will, as I say, leave all your links in the show notes.
Thank you.